I'm Sheriff Chad Bianco, and this is the RSO Roundup. Thank you for joining us. If you joined in last time, you'll remember Master Investigator Martin Alfaro from the Central Homicide Unit is our guest and was our guest, and we had to cut it short because of our time constraints, but we are back again for part 2.
Yes.
When we cut it off last time, you were talking about your most memorable cases, and you listed 3 that were high on your list. But I know there's many more that come to mind.
There's actually several. The ones that kind of stick out with the homicide cases. As a team, Central Homicide Unit team, Investigator Van Hars and I, we've dismantled a cartel syndicate. That case has taken us to Los Angeles County. We've unearthed 5 deceased bodies. Very interesting case. We also worked one of the cases that I actually remember one of my first cases was the Judy Munson case. The Judy Munson case was an elderly lady in La Quinta who was murdered. Ultimately, Investigator Patterson and I, and that was my first year in homicide, we ultimately solved the case. It turned out to be her own brother, hired a gun, and some person from Arizona who committed her murder, and we ultimately caught that case. And what's interesting about that case is this is the first time we actually, in my first time as an investigator, we used a bloodhound on that case to solve the case. And I still remember when the defendant, both suspects, the brother and the suspect Wesley Gibbs, were found guilty. We pulled the jury. The jury wanted to talk to us. They were found guilty, and one of the older ladies who was one of the jurors talked to me, and she's like, oh, you did good. And she's like, well, thank you so much. She's like, dogs never lie. Dogs never lie. And it was just, that stuck to me. And dogs is one of, we have many tools in homicide.
We do. We're such a big agency.
Yes.
And we really, it would be a shame for us to cut costs at the expense of a homicide investigation. So we try and have everything that you guys need. We try and make sure we get.
Yes. In homicide, we use all our tools. We use experts. We send out evidence. We use every single thing that's going to help us solve the case. In that case, happened to be a canine, a bloodhound, and we have an incredible canine unit, police service dogs, and also bloodhounds. But that was the case that comes out to me. That was in 2011. My secondary case was the victim was Shane Ayala. I still keep in touch with her family. In that case, Shane Ayala was found deceased months after he was murdered, and it was a family collecting rocks out in the desert, located a pile of just bones. And when we get called out, I went out there, and because we had to beat the sunlight, it was coming down. We planted the flag, say yes, those are human bones. We'll start off in the morning. And come 7 o'clock, we had an array of team. We ultimately gathered all the bones. We had experts come out, and these experts are incredible. Our forensic, not pathologists. Oh, great, I'm sorry.
That's okay, because I can't remember what we call them either. But I know what you're talking about. Yes. Those people that deal in bones.
Yeah, she identified the person. She's like, this is a male between the ages of 18 and 21 years of age, and he's about 5'9", 5'10", just from reading the bones. So it kind of gave us a good tip of what to look for. Ultimately, it took me about a couple of weeks to look at all the missing persons, and one of the missing persons was Shane Ayala, and that's when the 4-month investigation took part. We ultimately end up arresting Andrew De Los Santos and Raul Diaz for the murder, and they were found guilty on that case.
That's a good example of something that it's not like TV. It's there's no most of all of our cases there's no the proverbial smoking gun. We don't know who did it, and we have to go backtrack. And sometimes in a case like this, you have to even find out who the victim even is. And then if it was a victim, we have to determine whether they died of natural causes out there or if they really were the victim of a homicide. So there's so much more detail and sophisticated work that goes into it than just trying to find out who did it.
Yes, and that's just 5% of the story. Just giving you the tidbits, but it was a lot of work. It was a lot of records. I must have interviewed over 40 persons, and everything came out. We used all the tools in that case, and we ultimately found the two people that ultimately were the ones that killed Shane Ayala.
Mm-hmm. Outstanding. I mean, the work and one of the things that you mentioned, it stuck with me because it jarred my memory is when you're working with these families and the families of the victims or the friends of the victims, you spend so much time with them, you end up taking it very personally, and you build that personal bond with them, and
yes.
You're still in contact with some of them.
Yes, and in fact, every year on the birthday of the deceased, in this case of Jason Cupid, I still have the mother and father call me just to thank me and saying that you're in our prayers and thank you, and that's actually very rewarding. It feels good to acknowledge all our hard work. In that case, we arrested suspect Muir, who's already been found guilty through the court system, but just like you said, the family, they still contact you. And they appreciate all the hard work that we put into the case.
Yeah, absolutely. And the amount of time. I remember, several years ago, it was in Moreno Valley. I was the lieutenant there in Moreno Valley, and the homicide unit came out for that case when Norma Lopez was kidnapped, and eventually we found her body, and obviously she was murdered. But that week that we spent looking for her with the family every day and in contact with them, I mean, you're taking you take that personally.
Yes.
I remember how just how emotionally destroyed I was when a week later we found her body. Yes. And it was at that point where we weren't trying to find her anymore. It was almost now we have to find the killer.
Yes.
And at the time, I remember feeling like I failed because we were trying to find her and we couldn't. We failed, and now we have to do a homicide investigation. But that relationship you build with the family, they're putting everything in you.
Yes.
They want you so bad to help them and either find their missing family member or loved one, or the person that took their life away. Absolutely. And it's an unbelievably challenge and burden, and it's a responsibility we're putting on you that is very taxing.
Yes, you want to bring closure to the family. You want to bring justice to the family, and that's the part of the demanding of the job. And sometimes when you don't solve it, which is very rare, and you've done everything in your power, the team has put out 100%, and sometimes still an open case, and you still have the family calling them, and you let them know that we're doing as much as best as we can, and it does take a toll in you. Yes,
we for the public listening, we have a very good closure rate here. We close
Absolutely.
The majority, if not, we can't say all because there are some we're still working on, and some that are cold case homicides. But it goes to show the amount of effort that we put into them. That it's not just arresting someone for that murder. We have to get the right person.
Oh, absolutely, and to add to that point, not only do you have to get the right person, you have to do so much stuff. A lot of people think it's just check the box investigation. No, you have to do a lot of mandatory stuff, but you have to knock on doors, talk to people, talk to witnesses, look for video, look for evidence. And evidence could be anything. It could be a video camera, a cell phone records. It could be a piece of blood on a shoe. We think outside of the box. It's very demanding, and you only have one chance to do it, and that's why we're very methodical. That's why it takes about 16 hours normally for any kind of call out. But we're good at what we do, and we're still short, and it's a lot of hard work, but it's I love it. I love what I do.
Yeah, it's one of those, what you mentioned, it's a big team. It's a team involved, and it's not the expertise of one investigator that we're hoping for and that we get when we respond out there. We know that when I'm sending you guys out to a homicide, there's all of you have that expertise, and the good thing, I think, that what makes us successful and makes what we do, maybe I don't want to say better than everybody else, but it's certainly, I think, especially for a large organization, we don't really have an ego issue with anyone on the team, and everybody's looking for someone else for help, and you're expecting your partner to help you with information or to do something for you, and even with you sitting here talking, you're mentioning all your partners in your cases.
Yes.
This is just for me.
Yes.
To every time I see you now is you're not a selfish person. You're giving credit to everybody that was around you with helping you in these cases that you've solved, even though you've received awards for some of your investigations, but it is a team effort, and
Yes.
there's a lot of man hours and a lot of different people that are going into solving these cases.
Well, let me add to that, sir. The reason why we're successful, just from the onset of the call out, there's a lot of teams going there. So I could explain on a call out. When we arrive, usually the district attorney's office is there. For every homicide, there's a deputy district attorney, and we believe in the vertical prosecution. And what vertical prosecution for the public, meaning that the deputy district attorney that actually comes to the homicide is likely going to be the same person that's going to be processing the case. And that's been very successful. And I know that's been successful because of my brother. He's also a homicide detective for LAPD. And they do things a little bit different. But I can honestly say we're very successful. And the reason we are is because we have a lot of resources. The DA is already there. He already knows what's going on. We have multiple teams. We have station investigators already canvassing the area for us. So by the time we get there, we have a good general knowledge of what occurred or thus far. And usually patrol, I say about 30 to 50%, they usually have the suspect in custody because it just had happened. Some cases where the body or the deceased has been found days later, we have to look for the suspect in that case. But we're very successful because it's a production, the district attorney's office, all the tools that we need, station detectives. And what's good about with the homicide, if we need something, we'll run up the chain and we normally get it. And that's where we're successful.
Yeah, I've said this numerous times, to people and even in my family. If God forbid any of us are ever murdered, I hope it happens in Riverside County, because it's bad enough that murder happens, but I know that if it happens here, the person responsible is going to be found and prosecuted, and they'll be held accountable for it.
Yes.
We do a great job. You guys do a great job. I'm going to get you help. I promise you.
Yes.
I'll do everything I can to get more resources, more investigators.
Please.
I know that we need at least one more team and possibly even two, just to accommodate your on-call and the standby that takes us away from our families and everything else. But
Yes.
we're doing everything we can. You guys keep up the good work. Keep holding the line until I get the resources coming.
I know
Cavalry's
you are,
coming eventually.
I know you are, sir.
So thank you all for joining us. Master Investigator Martin Alfaro, he does a fantastic job for us and our entire Central Homicide Unit. We're very proud to provide the service we do to Riverside County and even the state of California, other places in the state. So we appreciate you all joining us. Thank you for joining us for both parts. And until next time, we'll see you at the RSO Roundup.